والنجم إذا هوى ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى.
He says, Ma anzal Allahu biha min sultan. How amazing. Allah says, Allah did not send down any sultan with them. And this is going to take some explaining. Bear with me. Let me explain sultan first. Okay? Sultan in Arabic is used for authority. Okay? It's also used for proof. I don't have a screen for sultan, so I'm going to tell it to you. Sultan is two things so far. What are those two things? Proof and authority. Okay, but they're connected to each other. Now, authority, that is like the king has authority, right? And the king's general has authority. And the king's general has a lieutenant, and the lieutenant also has authority. And the lieutenant has a soldier, and the soldier also has what? Authority. But the authority of the soldier is not his own. It was given to him by the lieutenant, but the lieutenant's authority is not his own. It was given to him by the general. The general's authority is not his own. It was given to him by the king. So when you have authority by proxy, authority by connection, that authority is called sultan. The authority by connection is called sultan. So what that means is when a police officer pulls you over, he has the authority to stop you, granted to him by proxy of the state. But when that same police officer is not wearing uniform and he's not in a police car and he's a civilian, he does not have the same authority. He cannot exercise that authority at that time. Or because that sultan is no longer there. So what that means is it's not the police officer that was powerful on his own. It's only because he had that proxy connection to the actual government. You understand? When Allah says sultan, it means you have an argument or a proof or authority that comes from a higher source and is connected. So when he says, Allah did not send down any sultan with these names exist, but if you trace them back, because on what authority did you come up with this name? You have to go back and go back and go back. There you will find Allah is not the source of this authority. In fact, you can't find anything about it except, oh, Manat, she makes women bleed. That's the authority. Oh, Lat, you lean on the guy. That's the authority. Ma anzalallahu biha min sultan. By contrast, when Allah says, this is Allah's word, Quran is Allah's word, is there a sultan in it? Does sultan come with it? The sultan of it came through Jibreel alayhi salam, who is getting it directly from Allah Azza wa Jal. And then that sultan is passed over to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which is why Allah says, Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. Or وَمَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. This is sultan. Whoever obeys the messenger has actually obeyed Allah. Why? Because Allah has given him what? Sultan. And that sultan means he's been authorized by God himself. He's been authorized by Allah himself. You understand this concept? Okay. So this is ma anzalallahu biha min sultan. These names they came up with, they just found them with their ancestors and never really thought more about them. And that's the next thing that I wanted you to understand. I went ahead of my slide, but if it's not Allah, the ultimate sultan, then what authority and what evidence did you get this from? Where does it trace back to? Well, if you did ask them, where did you get this from? They're only going to give you two answers. Most people who follow a religion in this world only have two answers for why they follow that religion. Number one, that's what my family does. This has been passed down for generations. That's our heritage. Jordan Peterson calls it civilizational Christians. He says some interesting things sometimes. He says some ridiculous things sometimes. It's all good. We take the good and leave the bad. But one of the things he describes himself as is a generational or civilizational Christian. You know what that means? I'm Christian because I'm part of the Christian civilization, not because I believe in Christianity. It has nothing to do with it. And there are people that are ethnic Jews. Ethnic Jews means I'm Jewish because I'm part of the Jewish heritage, not because I believe in Judaism. I'm an ethnic Jew atheist. Totally possible. Totally possible. By heritage. You can have people that are Hindu, they don't believe in any of those gods, but they'll go to Diwali and they'll go to all the other rituals, because that's what my dad does, and this is what we do. You have Chinese, the Chinese are very quickly becoming atheists, but they still have temples because it's part of the ritual. If you go to Switzerland, you'll hear church bells. The majority of the country is not a believer at all. They're atheists. Why do they have church bells ringing round the clock? Why? Because it's the heritage. They're Calvinists. They were obsessed with time and clocks. That's why the Swiss have very precise clocks and stuff. And Swiss watches are the most expensive because the branch of Christianity they shot out from was obsessed with time management. That was part of their faith. Anyway, I digress. The point is, one reason they'll tell you, why do you follow this religion? Because that's what my family did. That's where I come from. This is part of my heritage. So it's an answer about culture and history. The other answer is, why should I follow this? Why do you follow this religion? What do you mean? Everybody follows it. Well, you think everybody's crazy? So you're saying you're the only one who's right, everybody else is wrong? By the way, this argument is used in Muslim families a lot. Some young man, some young woman starts learning a little bit about their religion. This young girl, 18 years old, decides to put on hijab. Scariest thing to put on a hijab. Not in front of non-Muslims, in front of your mother. She puts it on for the first time, and Muslim, huh? What are you doing? Somebody die? What happened? And she's, Allah says, huh? Oh, the rest of us are kafir, right? We don't know anything. Your mother doesn't know anything. Your grandmother doesn't know anything. Your entire family, everybody's going to hell. Hey, everyone, this is the only one going to heaven. Look at her. Let's take a picture. At least we'll get a picture for someone from Jannah. God. You know what? The answer is, we follow this because who follows it? The majority. Because how can the majority be wrong? How can the majority be wrong? And these two things dictate most people's lives. What is everybody? And by the way, you know what we call this? Is not just your grandmother's problem. This is your problem too. It's called trends. Some idiot does a dance on TikTok, and now 8 billion people are doing a dance on TikTok because everybody's doing it. I mean, that's how you become valuable as a human being. And so, somebody sings a song. Now I'm going to sing that song too. I want to be part of the human fraternity of idiots. So this is what we've become. These are the two reasons you follow something. And then the ba here is really interesting because the Mufassirun kind of had to do a little bit of gymnastics here when they said the translations. If you read the English translations of this ayah, Allah did not send any authority or proof for them. They say for them or regarding them, meaning regarding those names. But that's not what the ayah says. Technically, it says biha, not laha or anha. Ma anzalallahu fiha or laha min sultan. Okay, he didn't send any authority for these names. Actually, in the past, I probably have mistranslated it myself too, because I didn't pay attention to the ba. Al-ba'u lil-ilsaq. As these names came, they were not attached to any authority. Ba is for fusion. They don't come with any authority. But when the Prophet speaks, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he comes with the authority of Jibreel because he's fused with him. Qaba qawsayni aw adna. He's inseparable from him. So he comes with the authority. But these arguments don't. So that's the with. The biha is really important here. Ma anzalallahu biha min sultan. Then, by the way, a similar ayah occurs in Surah Hud. I thought that was really interesting. Hud alayhi salam, speaking to the nation of Ad in Surah Al-A'raf. قد وقع عليكم من ربكم رجس وغضب أتجادلونني في أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم. Are you arguing with me about names that you made up yourselves, you and your ancestors? Exactly the same words. In other words, these exact words were said thousands of years ago before the Prophet by another Prophet to his people. What does that tell you? This is a recurring problem. And this problem did not stop thousands of years ago. And with the coming of the Prophet, it did not stop. In fact, it's still happening now. These are things you made up, you and your fathers. I met a Muslim recently whose father goes to a certain group and they have saints and they believe that those saints, you have to make dua to them and you have to have a picture of them in your house and all that kind of stuff. And they're Muslim. And he told his dad, I can't do that. And he said, oh, you don't believe in this one or his grandfather? And he starts opening up the photo album of all the saints. And as he's doing it, the funny enough, in hiya illa asma'un sammaytumuha antum wa aba'ukum ma anzalallahu biha min sultan. This is what this is.